What is the radius of convergence of the series summation n equals 0 to infinity of x minus 4 squared over 3 to the n? Okay, so my first thought here is I see this and I think geometric series. So radius of convergence basically means for what's the radius of values that this will equal a number as in not infinity. So the easiest way for me to think about this is I first see, okay, geometric series, because you have n equals 0 to infinity of something to the n. And the formula for a geometric series, for what it equals, is n equals 0 to infinity, well, I'll say k, to n equals k of r equals 1 minus r to the k plus 1 over 1 minus r. And the issue then becomes the only way that this equals a number that's not infinity when this goes to infinity. So k plus 1, so k in this case is infinity right there. So k plus 1 is infinity plus 1, which is still basically infinity. And the only way that this then doesn't equal infinity is if r is less than 1. So if you take like a value of like 1.1, raise it to infinity, it's going to be kind of slow because it's only going up by 10% each time. But eventually, you're going to get to infinity. But if you do like 0.9 to infinity, it's going to go down to 0. And so the idea here is you want this r, this ratio, to be less than 1. And that's when it's going to converge, is when r is less than 1. When r is greater than or equal to 1, then it's going to diverge. And so when they're talking about the radius of convergence, we know that we want x minus 4 quantity squared over 3 to be less than 1. Another way of thinking, or also we know that we want x minus 4 quantity squared over 3 to be greater than negative 1. So basically we want it between negative 1 and positive 1. Put this over here first. So first thing we're going to do is solve this equation right here. So when we solve this, I don't really focus as much on the radius of convergence as I find the interval of convergence. So what x has to be between, then I just find that distance between the two and divide by half. That gives us my radius. You'll see. Okay, so we do x minus 4 squared less than 3, x minus 4 less than square root of 3, and x is less than square root of 3 plus 4. Okay? Do it on the other side. We have x minus 4 squared greater than negative 3. X minus 4 squared is greater than square root of negative 3. Interesting. I can't take the square root of a negative number. Interesting. Okay. So I'm going to rewrite this a little bit. So I'm going to say instead that we have x minus 4 squared over negative 3 is less than 1. So what I did, I basically divided by negative 1. And then I'll take the square root of both sides. And I think I can do that because this is less than 1, a negative. This is also negative. Therefore, we can take the square root of it because when you have a negative divided by negative, you get a positive. And so then we would get something like x minus 4 over square root of 3 is less than 1. And I had to switch the inequality sign because when you divide by negative, you have to flip it. And so we get x minus 4 is less than square root of 3. X is less than 4 plus square root of 3? Oh, there's supposed to be a negative. Negative. Interesting. Wait a sec. Totally messed up somewhere. Somewhere when something went terribly wrong. Maybe. Either way, pretty sure what we're supposed to do is the negative goes to the outside. And so what happens here is we get the range. What we're going to have is 4 plus or minus the square root of 3. So the idea here is if we have 4 plus the square root of 3 or 4 minus the square root of 3, x is greater than 4 minus square root of 3. There's some math there that I need to figure out. But the idea here is we have x greater than 4 plus the square root of 4 minus the square root of 3 and 4 plus the square root of 3. So when we have a value within here, this will converge. And so what happens then, if you look up here, that kind of sort of makes sense. So if you have 4 plus the square root of 3, you'd get square root of 3 squared over 3. Or if you have 4 minus the square root of 3, you'd have 4 minus the square root of 3 minus 4, which would give you negative square root of 3 squared, which would then again give you square root of 3 over 3. And this gives you the bounds of this inner value, this r, being between -1 and 1. And so that's why we're bounded by the square root of 3. And so since we have the positive or negative square root of 3, our radius of convergence on this will be half of that. So in this case, it will be square root of 3. Interesting. I need to look at that one a little bit more. There is something I'm missing there. But that's the idea, that you can be square root of 3 plus or minus on either side of 4, and that'll still give you that inner ratio value between -1 and 1, which you can view it as a geometric series, and a requirement for a geometric series to converge is r less than 1.